A-Tree. He is responsible for strategy development, priority setting, resource mobilization, and communication. Today, he will be briefly sharing his thoughts with us. A round of applause for Mr. Balachander, please.
Hi, sorry for holding you up from your lunch. I can't hold up the flight, so that's why I'm just a panel of one now prior to lunch, but the rest of the panel on leadership and social entrepreneurship will follow after lunch. So thanks again for indulging me. And the reason I'm here is because Gauri invited me, and it's been a pleasure. I think his name should actually be Natarajan. He's a lot more creative, not so destructive, but anyway, he's got both in one. So getting to the point, I have, not for any other reason but to make a point, I have been on the global scene in terms of global agricultural research, also in the national scene in terms of research in trying to influence policy in the field of environment and development, and at a local level in terms of a social enterprise, one could call it a triple bottom line, trying to address the ecology, the economy, and the equity. I'll come to that a little later. So what's different between a social enterprise and a business enterprise? A social entrepreneurship is a process of pursuing solutions to social problems. Now, often these problems arise because of either market failures or imperfections or externalities. And some of these may not ever have a market solution. So if you're talking of a business enterprise, you might be focusing very much on a single bottom line. Whereas if there is a possibility of an ecosystem developing where some of these market imperfections can be corrected, then you might be looking, at least in the short to medium term, of looking at more than a single bottom line, because you want to look at returns, positive returns to society. You're looking at the social as well as the ecological. But if you look at the roots of economy and ecology, it's oikos, it's the same root. But then the time frames are very different. So if you're really looking for very short-term returns, you might not be able to do it with these kinds of social enterprises. But in my view, if you have the passion and the commitment and the long-term involvement in these, both the social as well as the business entrepreneurship are basically cut from the same cloth, as it were. Let me just give you a few examples of people who have tried to address some of the social problems. Vinoba Bhave, the Bhudan land gift movement. He appealed to their better senses to be much more inclusive. So that was one kind of a model. Then you have Norman Borlaug, of course, with a lot of donor support. He was the man who fed the world during the Green Revolution through research. And then, of course, Mother Teresa. These are people, I mean, the word altruism really applies to Mother Teresa. But if you go beyond that and you look at the slow development of an ecosystem, then you begin to see impact investing, angel investors, long-term patient capital. I mean, these are terms which are increasingly coming in. And then you might have also heard of the slow food movement, and there's also something called slow money. Slow money is something very similar to what Gandhiji talked about, village republics, local economies. How do you strengthen these in order to build up local purchasing power and so on? And more recently, there's been a greater emphasis on bottom of the pyramid. How do you make these not just consumers, the local people, but also producers and sharing and co-creation? There are some very good examples of trying to understand the societal needs and trying to build a model. We have a very good example of Dr. Verghese Kurian's Amul, Anand Milk Union, the world's largest cooperative, but he did not achieve it overnight. It took several years. So one of the key attributes of a leader, besides having the passion and the commitment, is to have the resilience. Not every enterprise is going to succeed. Even in a business enterprise with a single bottom line, the statistics are a small business in the US with all its developed infrastructure 80 to 90% fail within 5 years. So what is going to happen to a social enterprise? You're going to depend a lot more on the goodwill. You need to think about not just the business, you need to think about society, the political setup, the infrastructure, the institutions. So this is what I was mentioning earlier about interdisciplinarity of approach. Another example, more recent, is Anita Roddick from Body Shop. She pursued a passion for trying to address ecology as well as equity of the small collectors, for example, in the hills in Nepal, and to make a business of it, which succeeded to some extent, but ultimately there were some challenges. It was bought over by L'Oreal. And one can give more and more examples, but the point here is, if you understand the problem, of course, you have to marry it to your passion. You need to innovate, find a solution, and you don't know if the solution is going to succeed until you really try it out. So the sustainability part is very key, and if it's going to be sustainable, you need to constantly adapt, innovate, modify, adapt, and you need to have good measurement systems. Evaluation, measurement, in order to understand whether this is being effective. So there's a lot more one can talk about. Unfortunately, I have to run and you have to eat. But the panel will carry on. We have a good panel this afternoon after lunch. So thank you very much. And I apologize, I have to leave. Thank you.